You really thought you could keep running everything without me seeing how far you've slipped, didn't you? Your sister Megan has been the one paying attention. She knows this estate and the business are too much for you now. Sign the transfer papers by morning, Emily, or I'll make sure every investor sees exactly why you're not fit to lead anymore. Hi, my name is Emily Carter. I am 29 years old. Those three sentences from my husband Ryan landed like a sudden drop in the middle of our quiet Tuesday evening. I had just walked in from a long day at the wellness resort we had built together on the edge of the desert outside Scottsdale. The house still smelled faintly of the sage and cedar we used in the guest suites. Ryan stood in the middle of the open living room holding a folder. My younger sister Megan stood beside him, arms crossed, the same folder in her hands. Neither of them looked surprised to see me. They looked prepared. I set my keys on the counter without saying anything at first. My hands stayed steady even though my chest felt tight. Ryan had never spoken to me like that before. Not in the 5 years we had been married. Not even during the hardest months when we were pouring every dollar into the land and permits. Megan had always been the one I called when things felt heavy. She was the one who helped plan the soft opening, who stayed late helping me choose the right linens and the right local artists for the walls. Now she was standing next to him like they had rehearsed this. Ryan opened the folder and slid a single sheet across the kitchen island toward me. It was a draft agreement transferring majority operational control of the resort to a new LLC. His name and Megan's were already listed as managing partners. My signature line was blank. The date at the top was tomorrow. I found the confidential notes from your last investor call. Ryan said, his voice calm, but edged with something colder. The one where you told them you were still the sole decision maker on any expansion. Megan and I both read them. We agreed it was time to stop pretending this is still only your company. Megan nodded once, not meeting my eyes. You've been making choices that put everything at risk. We're trying to protect what we've all built. I picked up the paper. The language was clean and professional. It would have looked reasonable to anyone who didn't know the context, but I knew the context. I had built the first phase of the resort with money from a small inheritance and a loan I took out before I even met Ryan. Megan had come on as an events coordinator 2 years later. Ryan had joined as a marketing consultant the year after that. Somewhere along the way, the lines had blurred in everyone's mind except mine. I set the paper back down. You want me to sign this tonight? Ryan's mouth tightened. By tomorrow morning. Victor Lang is flying in from Phoenix. He's ready to move forward with the new partnership structure. If you don't sign, he walks and takes the funding with him. Victor Lang was the investor we had been courting for the next phase of the resort. I had been the one building the relationship for 8 months. Ryan had sat in on 2 meetings. Megan had never been in the room at all. I looked at my younger sister. You've been talking to Victor without me. She finally met my eyes. There was no apology in them. Someone had to be realistic. You were never going to agree to bring in real partners. You treat this place like it's still your private project. The words stung because they were partly true. I did treat it like my private project. Because it had been. Until the day I married Ryan and the day I let Megan take on more responsibility. I had trusted both of them with pieces of it. Now they were using that trust to cut me out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply folded the paper once and placed it back in the folder. I need time to look this over with my own attorney. Ryan shook his head. No more delays. Derek Hale already reviewed it for us. He said it's clean. Derek Hale was the corporate attorney I had used for the original land purchase and every major contract since. The fact that they had gone to him first told me how long this had been in motion. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not panic, not yet. Something quieter and sharper. The kind of feeling that comes when you realize the people you trusted most have been keeping a separate set of books. Ryan checked his watch. Megan and I have a call with Victor in 20 minutes. You can join if you sign first, or you can stay out of it. Your choice. He picked up the folder and walked toward the office we had once shared. Megan followed without looking back at me. The door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow felt louder than anything they had said. I stood alone in the kitchen for a long moment. The desert light outside had shifted to that deep gold that only lasts a few minutes before the sun drops behind the mountains. I could hear their voices through the door, low and steady, already moving on to the next part of their plan. If you've ever watched 2 people you trusted most step into a room together and close the door on you, you know the particular kind of quiet that follows. It's not dramatic. It's just final. I walked to the back patio and sat on the low stone wall that overlooked the resort grounds in the distance. The main lodge lights were already on for the evening guests. Everything looked calm from here. It always had. I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted notes app I use for business. I started typing everything Ryan and Megan had just said word for word, including the part about Derek Hale and Victor Lang. I added the time, the date, and the exact wording of the transfer agreement they had shown me. Then I screenshotted the message thread from Ryan earlier that week, where he had asked me to trust the process on the expansion numbers. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with any of it. I only knew I wasn't going to sign anything without a record of how this conversation had actually gone. My hands were still steady when I saved the file and locked the phone. But the feeling in my chest had changed. It wasn't fear, it was the beginning of something colder and more deliberate. I sat there until the last of the light left the sky. Inside the house, I could still hear Ryan and Megan talking. They didn't sound angry. They sounded organized, like people who had already decided how the rest of the story was going to go. I didn't go back inside right away. I stayed on the patio and let the desert air cool my skin. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called once, then went quiet again. I had built this place with my own hands and my own money, before either of them had a say in it. I had let them in because I believed trust was something you could give and receive. Tonight they had shown me exactly how they intended to use what I had given them. I didn't know how far they were willing to go. I only knew I wasn't going to find out by staying quiet. The morning after the confrontation, I woke before the sun reached the bedroom windows. Ryan's side of the bed was already empty. I could hear the low hum of the resort's morning shuttle in the distance, but the house itself felt unnaturally quiet. The folder with the transfer papers was gone from the kitchen counter. In its place was a single printed page from Ryan, a revised investor deck with my name still listed as author, and numbers that no longer matched the ones I had presented 2 weeks earlier. I made coffee and opened the shared drive on my laptop. The login worked. That small fact gave me a strange, brief sense of control. I scrolled to the investor folder. 3 files had been edited after midnight. I opened the first one and compared it line by line with the version saved on my personal drive. The risk section had been expanded. The conservative growth projection I had used had been replaced with language that made the entire expansion look reckless, and my oversight appear negligent. My signature block was still at the bottom. I did not delete the files. I took screenshots, saved them to a private encrypted folder I had created years ago for tax documents, and forwarded copies to the new attorney Jordan Hale. Then I called my friend Lisa Morales. She answered on the first ring. "Tell me you didn't sign anything." "I didn't, I said." My voice sounded steadier than I expected. But they already showed Victor altered numbers with my name on them. Lisa was quiet for a few seconds. "Send me everything. And Emily, stop using any shared system until we know exactly what they can access. I'll review the numbers this morning and call you back." After we hung up, I drove to the resort early before Ryan or Megan usually arrived. I used my master key to enter the main office. The computer was still logged in. I did not touch the shared drive. Instead, I checked the local documents folder and the printer queue. A file titled Confidential Leadership Transition Notes sat near the top of the recent list. It was dated 2 weeks earlier. I opened it. The document was a bullet point summary of a meeting between Ryan, Megan, and Derek Hale. It listed specific incidents they could use to argue I was overwhelmed a vendor payment delay from 6 months ago, a single guest complaint I had handled directly, and my choice to keep the expansion timeline conservative rather than aggressive. At the bottom in Megan's handwriting was one additional line: "If she resists the financial discrepancies, we'll make the case for us." I photographed the screen with my phone logged out, locked the office, and drove straight to Jordan Hale's office without an appointment. She read the photos while I sat across from her desk. When she finished, she set the phone down carefully. "This changes the strategy," she said. "They are not just asking for control. They are building a narrative that justifies removing you. We need to lock your version of every record and send formal preservation notices today. Do not respond to any demands until I review the full picture." I nodded. The calm I felt was not peace. It was the same focused quiet that had come over me the night before when I realized they had rehearsed their lines. I thanked Jordan and drove home. By the time I reached the desert estate, Ryan had already texted twice. "Victor's call is at 3. The revised deck is ready. Sign before then, or we present without you." The second message came 20 minutes later. "Megan and I are trying to protect what you started. Don't make us do this the hard way." I did not reply to either. Instead, I forwarded both to Jordan Hale with the timestamp and context. Then I sat at the kitchen island and opened the Notes app on my phone. I typed out every conversation since the night before, every changed file, every text. I included the exact wording from the confidential notes I had photographed. When I finished, I saved it as a single document and emailed it to Jordan with the subject line, full timeline, and supporting evidence. At 2:45 p.m., my phone rang. It was Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. The message he left was short. Last chance. If you don't join the call, we're moving forward with the new structure. Victor already has concerns about your decision-making. This is on you now. I listened to the message once, then deleted it. At 3 p.m., I opened my laptop and joined the video call from the kitchen table using a guest link Victor had sent me directly 2 days earlier. Ryan and Megan were already on the screen. Victor Lang appeared a moment later. Ryan started speaking before anyone else could. Victor, thank you for making time. As we discussed, the revised projections show higher risk under the current leadership structure. Megan and I have prepared a transition plan that brings in additional oversight while keeping the family involved. He did not look at me while he spoke. Megan nodded along, her expression professional and concerned. Victor turned to me. Emily, I'd like to hear your perspective before we go further. I kept my voice even. The numbers Ryan is showing you were altered after I presented the original deck. I have the original files and the edit timestamps. I also have documentation of a separate plan to remove me that was created 2 weeks ago. I'm not signing anything until those issues are addressed. The silence on the call lasted several seconds. Ryan's face tightened. Megan's eyes flicked toward him once, then back to her screen. Victor cleared his throat. I think we need to pause this discussion. Emily, can you send me the original deck and the timestamps you mentioned? I already have, I said. They're in your inbox. Ryan tried to speak again, but Victor cut him off. Let's reconvene tomorrow after I've reviewed everything. Emily, thank you for joining. The call ended. Ryan and Megan's video tiles went dark. I closed my laptop and sat in the quiet kitchen for a long moment. My hands were still steady. The feeling in my chest was no longer shock. It was something sharper and more useful clarity. I stood up, walked to the office, and locked the door behind me. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, where I had placed the transfer folder. I did not touch it. I simply sat there and let the weight of what had just happened settle. They had shown their hand in front of Victor. They had also shown that they were willing to lie about the numbers and about my fitness to lead. The confidential notes proved it had been planned for weeks. My phone buzzed on the desk. A new text from an unsaved number. Emily, it's Megan. We need to talk before tomorrow. Alone. Please don't go through Ryan. This is between us. I stared at the message. My younger sister had never used a number I didn't recognize. She had always called from the resort line or from Ryan's phone when she needed something. I did not answer it. Instead, I forwarded the text to Jordan Hale with one line: new development. Call when you can. Then I opened the Notes app again and added the exact wording of Megan's message, the time, and the fact that it came from an unknown number. I saved it with the rest of the timeline. Outside the office window, the desert light was starting to fade. The resort lights were coming on one by one across the grounds. Guests would be gathering for the evening welcome in the lodge. They had no idea that the 3 people who ran the place were no longer on the same side. I stayed in the locked office until the house was completely dark. Ryan had not come home. Megan had not called again. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning and the occasional distant call of a coyote somewhere beyond the walls. I had built this place before either of them had a vote. I had let them in because I believed the people closest to you were the ones you could trust with everything. Tonight, I had proof that they had been keeping their own set of plans for weeks. I did not know yet how far they were willing to go to make those plans real. I only knew I was no longer willing to find out by staying quiet or by signing anything. I closed the Notes app, locked my phone, and sat in the dark office for a few more minutes. The next move was not going to be theirs. It was going to be mine. But I needed one more piece of information before I made it. My phone lit up again on the desk. Another message from the same unknown number. Emily, please. I'm outside the east gate. Just 5 minutes. I won't tell Ryan. I looked at the screen for a long time. Then I stood up, unlocked the office door, and walked through the dark house toward the front. I did not turn on any lights. I stopped at the window that overlooked the long driveway leading to the east service gate. A single car was parked just outside the gate, headlights off. I could not see the driver clearly, but I already knew who it was. I stayed at the window and watched the car for several minutes. It did not move. The unknown number sent one more text. I'm not leaving until we talk. This affects both of us now. I turned away from the window without answering. I walked back to the office, closed the door, and locked it again. Then I sat down at the desk and opened a new document. I had until morning to decide what I was going to do with everything I now knew. The people I had trusted most had already decided what they were going to do with me. The desert outside was silent. Inside the locked office, I began to type. The car stayed parked outside the east gate for another 20 minutes before the headlights finally came on and it drove away. I watched the taillights disappear down the road from the dark window. I did not go outside. I did not answer Megan's texts. Instead, I called Jordan Hale and read her the exact words of the last message. "She wants to meet alone," I said. "I'm not doing that." "Good," Jordan replied. "Document every contact. We'll use it if we need to show pattern. Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow we prepare the full package." I did not sleep much. I sat in the locked office with the lights off and went through every file I had saved. The altered investor deck, the leadership transition notes, the timeline of texts and conversations. By morning, I had a single encrypted folder ready to send. I titled it simply, Evidence, Carter Resort Leadership. Ryan came home just after sunrise. He looked tired but determined. He set his keys on the counter the same way he had 2 nights earlier. "You missed the call," he said. "Victor wants to move forward with the transition. Megan and I can handle the day-to-day while you take some time." I looked at him across the kitchen. "I have the original numbers and the edit history. I also have the meeting notes you and Megan created with Derek Hale 2 weeks ago, the ones that list specific incidents you plan to use against me." Ryan's expression did not change, but his shoulders tightened. Those notes were internal. They don't change the fact that the business needs stronger oversight. They change everything I said, because they prove this wasn't a sudden concern. It was a plan. And I'm not signing anything that hands control to people who spent weeks building a case to remove me. He started to speak again, but I raised a hand. "Jordan Hale is sending formal preservation notices this morning. Victor already has the original deck. If you and Megan want to present anything else, it will have to go through proper channels with full disclosure." Ryan stared at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his keys again. "You're making this harder than it has to be. The resort doesn't belong to just you anymore." "It does," I said. "And it always did. I let you both in because I trusted you. That was my mistake. I won't make it twice." He left without another word. I sent the encrypted folder to Jordan and to Victor directly. Then I drove to the resort and met with Elena Vargas, the operations lead, who had been with me since the first construction phase. I told her only what she needed to know, that there would be changes in leadership structure and that all major decisions were to route through me until further notice. She nodded once, asked no questions, and went back to work. Her quiet loyalty was one of the few steady things left. By midday, Jordan called. Victor reviewed everything. He's pulling back from any transition until the internal issues are resolved. Ryan and Megan have been notified that any further changes require your signature and legal review. Derek Hale is withdrawn from representing them on this matter. That afternoon, I received one more text from the unknown number. "Emily, I made a mistake. Ryan pushed for the notes. I went along because I was scared about the expansion failing. Please don't cut me out completely." I forwarded it to Jordan without replying. Then I blocked the number. The final meeting happened 2 days later in the small conference room at the back of the main lodge. Ryan, Megan, Jordan, and I sat around the table. Victor joined by video. No one raised their voice. Ryan tried once more to frame it as concern for the business. Megan sat with her hands folded and did not look at me. When Jordan placed printed copies of the leadership transition notes and the edit timestamps on the table, the room went quiet. Ryan read the first page and set it down. "This doesn't have to destroy everything he said, but the edge had left his voice." "It already has," I answered. "The marriage, the trust, the idea that family or partnership meant something automatic, those are gone. What's left is the resort, and it stays in my name under my control with no further involvement from either of you." Jordan slid the separation and non-interference agreements across the table. Ryan signed first, his hand steady, but his face pale. Megan signed second, her signature smaller than usual. Victor confirmed he would only work with me going forward. The meeting lasted less than 40 minutes. After everyone left, I stayed in the conference room alone. The desert light came through the high windows in long strips. I could hear guests laughing near the pool outside. The resort was still running. The numbers were still real. The version of my life that included a husband and a sister who helped run it was not. That night, after the lodge had quieted, my phone rang from a number I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. It was Megan. Her voice was low and unsteady. I didn't want it to go this far. Ryan said if we didn't push now, the expansion would collapse and we'd all lose everything. He had the numbers changed. I just went along. I thought if I helped him, you'd eventually see it was for the best. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I said, "You made your choice when you helped build the case against me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." She started to say something else, but I ended the call. I blocked that number too. Then I sat on the patio of the desert estate and watched the stars come out over the rocks. The emotional safety net I had once taken for granted was gone. There was no one left to call at the end of a hard day who already knew the whole story. That was the cost. I accepted it because keeping the resort in my own judgment mattered more than pretending the people I had trusted were still on my side. In the weeks that followed, I finalized the divorce on terms that kept the business entirely in my name. Megan was removed from all operational access. I hired Jordan Hale as primary counsel and asked Lisa Morales to review the books quarterly. Elena Vargas stepped into a larger role and never asked about the changes. The resort continued to book well. The expansion moved forward on the original conservative timeline I had always preferred. Some nights I still sat on the patio after the guests had gone to bed and felt the quiet of the desert settle around the house. The quiet was no longer tense. It was simply empty in places where voices used to be. I did not regret the boundaries. I did not regret choosing the work I had built with my own hands over the people who had tried to take it. But I also did not pretend the loss had not changed me. Trust, I had learned, was not something you gave because someone shared your last name or your bed. It was something earned every single day through actions that matched words. Ryan and Megan had shown me exactly what their actions were worth. I kept running the resort the way I had always intended, steady, careful mine. The desert around it stayed the same. The people inside it changed. I changed with them. The peace I found was real, but it carried the clear knowledge that some doors once closed stayed closed. I was willing to live with that. Thank you for listening to my story. If the people closest to you ever decided you were in the way of what they wanted, what would your limit be? Tell me in the comments.